And also I have to, yeah, it is recording.
Great.
So let's just give it a couple of minutes as people come through. I do see people
Great.
coming through.
Great.
So by the way, how is your Thursday going?
It's going great. My pup and my 6-month-old puppy is sleeping on the couch. So, you know, that's good. She's not distracting me.
That is, I bet that's a handful, especially with
It
everything you
is.
already have going on.
It is. Yeah, my puppy's, but she's so sweet. She's a 6-month-old beagle and she's just the sweetest little thing. But she's a handful. My last call, she was chewing the rug. So I had to mute every 5 seconds to tell her to stop chewing the rug. So
What's her name?
her name's Winnie.
Okay,
Yeah.
you have exactly what I want. Like my significant other is a hunter, and we were trying to,
Oh,
and he really wants like Weimaraners or
like a
um,
wired hair.
yeah, like
Yeah,
a bigger dog that's
like a
skinny. And I
pointer.
want, yes, and I want like a small, like in between cuddly dog. And so a beagle is still a hunting dog. And so that's something
Oh,
that we
yes.
decided on a long time ago.
Well, I can tell you all about it when you're ready. I've only ever had beagles and she's definitely led by her nose. I can tell you that. So she's a sweet girl.
What made you get one recently?
Pandemic. My parents have a 9-year-old beagle. And so I'm very attached to her and seeing her kind of coming up on the back half of her life, I was getting really emotional. And I'm working from home now for the foreseeable future, like many of us, and figured I have the time and resources to give, a little pup a good life. So I purchased her and I got her in August and she's just my little buddy. So
Oh,
yeah, she's
that's
sweet.
yeah, that's incredible. I wish we can do the same because obviously same position,
Hmm.
but our condo, we're renting in a condo
Okay.
and they don't allow us to even have any small animals of any type.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
they're super strict and we really, really, really want a pet of some
Yeah.
sort.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we just can't, but we're moving
One day.
soon.
Good.
So,
I'm moving Monday, so I hear ya.
oh my gosh, that's
Uh-huh.
exciting.
Just moving neighborhoods. I'm not leaving, but with COVID, there were so many good deals, and I've been in the neighborhood I'm in now for 9 years, and let's change it up. So,
That's awesome. Yeah, we're actually moving across country. We're going to Denver.
oh my gosh, good for you. That'll
Yeah,
be awesome.
it's gonna be crazy. So let's just give it one more minute as people join.
Yeah.
And for those who are already on it, we will be going until 1 p.m. The last 15 minutes we're going to leave for Q&A, and there's a little Q&A section on Zoom, so please just send your questions through that and we will get to them.
Great.
Let's just give it like a couple more seconds.
Yeah, I got nowhere to be.
You can't leave us now.
Nope.
So thanks for everyone for joining. I'm super excited for this conversation on social media and community building. I think we can all use a couple of tips on how to engage with our target audience on a one-to-one basis. I'm Sydney Oberholzer, the marketing manager at VisualFizz. And if you're not familiar with the agency, we're a full service digital marketing agency. We focus on growing organizations who are building out their brand and also brands that are looking for a refresh. And if you haven't joined us on a growth series event before, we talk through growth, entrepreneurship, marketing, business strategies with our guests. And they usually share experiences growing their own brand and just growing personally on top of the professional side. We've covered topics in luxury marketing, mobile apps, content marketing, pivoting during COVID was a big one.
Mhm.
But today we're focusing on growing through communities. Very excited because we all live in a digital world, especially now. Businesses are pivoting. And so when there aren't real life experiences, how can we get that one-on-one action with our audiences when there's a screen in between all of us. So today we are joined with Julia Rosnes. She is the founder of 26 Digital and Go Hydrate. And again, we're going to spend the first 45 minutes going through her experiences with her personal and professional growth, but the last 15 minutes will be held for Q&A. So we will get to them. If you have any questions, please send them through Zoom. So to kick it off, Julia, I'll pass it to you and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Rosines. I have many hats, I should say. So it's hard to give myself just one title because I do many things that you guys will learn about. But I am the co-founder of an electrolyte drink called Go Hydrate. We're here in Chicago. And then I also am a contractor at Kraft Heinz, working on one of their growth brands called Supper Up. And then I also still run my own business called 26 Digital, where I do some freelance consulting with small businesses and nonprofits, which is actually how I met Sydney a few years ago. So one of my large clients there is called She Runs It, which is a nonprofit for women in marketing, media, and tech. And yeah, I've been in the industry now to date myself, for 10 years. So I've got the decade under me, and, you know, it's really spanned different verticals, but always the common thread is food companies I've worked for and social media marketing. So I got my start in New York City after college. I had to go to New York and go to Madison Avenue and work in an ad agency, which I did, and I hated it. So I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, went to Manhattan and worked at a really large agency, had a horrible, horrible boss. Looking back, you know, he was a mansplainer, he was misogynistic. It was just like, I hate to say classic, but like, it was just like what you read about, and it was awful. And I left and I moved back home to Chicago, where I worked in agencies for another 4 years, working on social media for Unilever, Nestle, huge brands. And then I went in-house at a chocolate company in Chicago and did their social media and their marketing and brand management. And then in 2015, I actually took a leap of faith and started my own business called 26 Digital when I was 26 years old. That's why it's called that. And I did that for 5 years full time on my own. And then I switched this year. I was kind of craving change and craving coworkers again, and decided to apply for full-time positions. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and I decided to take a position with Kraft Heinz to be a contractor, which has been amazing the past, 10 months this year. But definitely didn't get the coworkers because we haven't been in an office. So, missing that piece of the puzzle still, and hopeful, next year I can have that piece back. But yeah, I have tons of hats. Every day is different, and I thrive in the social media digital landscape. That's really where I live most days. And yeah, that's just a high level of kind of what I've been up to.
And thank you for that. That was definitely a lot. And I think that shows too that having that horrible experience right off the bat shows you what you don't want. So at least you could check that off the list.
I think that's half the battle, is finding what you don't like. And honestly, like my resume has a lot of different experiences, and every time I've ever interviewed or talked to somebody, it's all about picking back those layers of like, I didn't want to live in New York, so I made a change and I moved back home to Chicago. Like, didn't like that lifestyle. Finding what you don't like is extremely important, because that's how you narrow in on what you do like.
Exactly. And you can't force things. Like, you're not going to be happy in, if it is a different agency and doing the same thing. What was that like final moment like when you took the jump and created your own business?
Yeah, so it's pretty wild. So I'm from an entrepreneurial family. My dad's in the financial sector and always had his own business there. And I always wanted to create a life for myself that I could do anywhere in the world and on my own schedule. and something that I could eventually one day do when I had a family. I saw a lot of women struggling with the balancing of career and personal life, and just also people just generally unhappy in their careers. And so I wanted to create something for myself that could give me that balance that I wanted,
Mhm.
and that I wanted for the long term. And also, I found a very specific niche in the market that was needed. So my business was created to be a small scale consultancy. And what that means is I was finding a lot of small businesses and startups needed marketing expertise, specifically social media and digital marketing, but they couldn't afford an agency with astronomical overhead and fees. And they also didn't need somebody in house on
Mhm.
salary. And so I was able to, through conversations with colleagues and my network, really understand that. And as a result, I had many meetings with people, and they would always kind of be picking my, brain for advice, or I have this idea, or I want to do this. And they leaned on me pretty heavily, and it kind of came to fruition on its own. Um, what I'm about to say is probably like anti what anyone will ever say, but I had no business plan. I It happened extremely organically, and it was very focused. And I had an old colleague who had reached out to me in 2015, and we had many conversations about what he was working on. And I remember I was hitting a breaking point in my day job, and we went to lunch, and he said, I've got this small amount of money. Can you help me consult? And without any hesitation, I said yes. And saying yes in that moment was the start of my business. It wasn't named. It wasn't, like I said, no business plan. There was no model for what I was doing. And I had no one to look up to for what I was doing. I had to do it myself. And I thrive in chaos, I should say. This was exhilarating for me. And I said yes. I left my job, but I also freelanced in an ad agency just to keep the lights on,
Right.
so to speak, to make sure that I was able to pay my bills and do it smart. I didn't just say, "Oh, I'll figure out how to pay things." Like, I really made sure I could make it work financially.
Mhm.
And 6 months later, the client tripled in size, and I was able to do full time consulting for them as my first official client. And yeah, it just happened very organically. And I was able to sustain that full time for 5 years.
Wow.
And I had interns, associates come through. And it was amazing. And I still do it. I just do it much smaller scale now so that I can wear my other hats as well. So
Good for you. Like,
thank you.
first off, I think we could go in the direction of like, how do you manage your time? But I
Yeah.
think that can be like a whole nother conversation
Yes, it
in
can.
itself, because that is definitely a huge like pain point, I think, amongst a lot of freelancers. But for the time being, like, how, like, just high level, like, do you time block, or do you schedule like, your different tasks each day? How does that look?
It depends. I mean, so my full-time gig is a contractor for Kraft Heinz. So,
Mhm.
they get my time. They get my 9 to 5, if you will. And I take lunch breaks. I walk the dog, where then I'll maybe take a call for Go Hydrate, or she runs it, or another client that I'm working on. It's somewhat structured, but it's also it changes every day. But the one thing that I love, I will always prioritize, is that noon to 1, sometimes noon to 2 hours, where I can have my me time, especially during the pandemic. I found,
Mhm.
before I got my puppy in August, there would be days where I didn't leave my house and get fresh air. And, all of the routine of a commute and those times in your day where you have time to yourself were gone. And I'm sure a ton of us can relate to that. And so I found the biggest difference was getting my puppy. I was forced outside, sometimes more times a day than I would like, but I was forced outside, and I made that time for me and for her and for, my other side hustles, to kind of take the time for that, and my mental health too, right? I mean, we're all staring at screens and Zoom all day long, and we're all experiencing, I think, a very different kind of burnout. And yeah, I prioritize, my full time, and then everything else kind of fills in with the missing, the little pockets of time that I get. So
that definitely makes sense. And honestly, the screen fatigue is a real thing. Like I never thought that, working and walking to lunch and even walking to work previously was a huge game changer, because I got my first like headache at the end of a day because I was staring at a screen, for 10 hours or something. And I honestly was so confused. I'm like, what is this? Like,
it's very real. And I think it's affecting us all very differently. I mean, personally, I'm very real and honest. I'm feeling extremely burned out at the moment. And I'm really hoping, because part of the downside of what I do with all the hats that I wear is I have to force myself to shut down entirely. I say entirely with a massive asterisk, because if something happens on social media with a client or a brand, I'm on it. But, next week, like I said, I'm moving, and I'm really optimistic. I'm taking the whole week off to kind of decompress. And I encourage anyone out there to do the same. Your mental health is the top priority, especially, during these times. And we don't realize the added stressors that we do have, right? Of, do I have my mask when I go to the grocery store? Is it, am I 6 feet apart? All these extra things that are on our brains, while we're also simultaneously taking care of ourselves, our families, children, animals, keeping a job, paying our bills, with so many added layers. So I digress, but take care of yourself, folks.
It's important. It really is. And speaking of like all of your side hustles and all the different hats that you're wearing, like how did you start turning your side hustle into something greater?
Yeah. So like I said, it really kind of happened organically with that one conversation of saying yes. And I was really fortunate enough to have a great network. And I think I'm going to take this kind of in that direction a little bit, because a lot of what I help people with, friends, colleagues, junior staff that I've mentored and managed, is teaching them the importance of your network. Everything that I've ever done has been a result of that. The meeting I had where I said yes was a result of that. Every single client thereafter was a result of that. I was very fortunate. I never made a cold call. I never had to do a pitch deck to somebody to get their business. I mean, after I met them, of course, but to get them in the door, it was all word of mouth, which is what I do. So it was, everything came through that way. And when my network started to pick up even more, when I launched 26 Digital, it just all sort of spiraled from there, because I had those established relationships. And a funny story, not related to the business, but your network, you treat them like royalty. I mean, in this industry that I'm in, everyone knows everyone. And it is, a very small world. So much so that my first client in New York was Verizon. I was on the team there. And 6 years later, at another agency in Chicago, Verizon was the client there. And I had the exact same account manager. And, it all comes full circle. People that you work with. And so for me, that is how I was able to sustain my business and how I was able to do it full time. I also was very smart about it. Like I said, I didn't just rush into it. I had a freelance gig at a large agency in Chicago at the same time. And I made sure that I stayed on top of what was happening. I consume media all day for my clients and for myself. And I always wanted to stay on top of things, to be smart in my craft. I never wanted to be stale or not relevant in what I was doing and selling to people. And so, I read the trade publications, I subscribe to a newspaper. I like the tangible feeling of things in my hand. And I grew it that way. It was just network, and something I still to this day do. I will be the first to introduce anyone to make a connection, to build somebody else's network. It's the most important thing you can do. So
what would the first step be? Like, would it be like just putting it out there, like, hey, like let's say an opportunity did not come to you. What would be the first step to tapping into the network? Like, would you recommend LinkedIn or joining like local organizations?
Yeah. LinkedIn is a great start. I got, let me think, 2 or 3 of my full-time jobs previously from LinkedIn. And I'm sort of relentless on LinkedIn. I'm not annoying like some of the salespeople that you get emails from,
Right.
but if I see a friend of a friend or a second degree connection or something, I'll say, hey, do you know, Sydney at VisualFizz? I'd love to get a call with her for XYZ reason, but I always, of course, start with how are you? How are things going? How are the kids? Whatever it is. Because when you have your own business, you are in sales as well, because you're selling yourself, which is different than a product. And LinkedIn, I add anyone I ever have a meeting with, I add on LinkedIn right away, just to always have them there. And additionally, I always recommend joining some kind of group. For Chicago, I'll do the plug of She Runs It, because that's how Sydney and I met. And She Runs It as a nonprofit to help women lead in marketing, media, and tech. And it's a membership organization. And part of that is we have networking circles, we have events, we have a network of 5,000 women that are willing and ready to help you at any stage in your career, whether it's an informational interview, whether it's, actually a job search, or just coffee of like, hey, what do you do? That's actually how I met somebody at Samsung this year who became a client. And so, Motorola. I'm looking at my Samsung TV. Motorola, and she became a client this year because of my networking with She Runs It. And so, it's just being open and willing to be fearless in talking to people. And also always remembering, what can you offer them? It's not an ask always for yourself, but like, how can I help you? I had a meeting last week with another food and beverage company in Chicago, and I said, what can I do for you? They were giving me some contact information with people, and I said, how can I help you? And now I'm helping her audit her website. So it's, always trying to find that relationship that helps both of you. And also keeping up with people, sending them a Christmas card. It's like, just, hey, how's it going? Or just checking in. Or like, if you find, I always remember when I was in college, my very first mentor in the industry was a very seasoned veteran at Leo Burnett in Chicago. And he really took me under his wing throughout college and helped me every summer kind of through interview processes and things like that. And he always said to me, you need to prove your value to anyone you're working with. And that can be as simple as, hey, I found this article on XYZ in your business industry. What are your thoughts? I think this is really fascinating. Or just showing them that you're on top of it, that you're not just like, hey, I found this job listing. Like, what do you think? It's like, hey, this pertains to your industry. Love to chat about it. And it really stuck with me as a way to always make sure that you're, engaging in the right way.
Yeah, those are all really great points. And yes, to your point about She Runs It, strong believer. And I am so passionate about the organization. So anyone who is listening to this, if you need a local organization in Chicago, it's also in New York, and they're building out across the nation now because it's like all online. But it's incredible. It's a low fee. And like Julia said, it's more than just networking. It's learning workshops. Like it's a community. And so if you don't fit into that, definitely find a local organization by Google search or by asking your friends, because they can help in so many ways. Second, I lost my train of thought, but the other point I had was, yes, following up. I think that's such an important point that you made, because I think people forget about that. Like, it does take a couple of touches to actually get a response from someone, or they could be busy. It could be the wrong time. So just keeping track of that, like you could really build a relationship from that 100%.
Yep. Always important.
So other than like personally growing, what would you say are the benefits of like, the network, the communities for your brands?
Yeah. It's so interesting. So I have been building brands online for 10 years, and a big part of that is the traditional community management side. And for those not familiar with that kind of buzzword, is you're the eyes and ears of social media for a brand. So you're the one on the front lines, dare I say, of responding to people, handling any customer service issues. As many of you probably do, social media has become a customer service tool. So you're going to reach out to, Pottery Barn on Facebook before you might call their helpline, their customer service line. And so it's all about relationships in that moment, right? Of making sure that everything's right for the customers. So for Supper Up, my Kraft Heinz job, I am the eyes and ears of all of that. And it's the most important thing is to be authentic and honest in everything that you do. And transparency is key. No longer, if someone's order is messed up or they didn't get a product or something happened, I will always be honest. I will always say, I am sorry, that is our error. Or I'll say, we ran out of that product, it sold out. I'm not going to say like, oh, we forgot. Like, it's like, hey, we sold out. I'm going to make this right. I'm going to refund the cost. I'm going to get it to you next week at no cost, because those people become advocates for your brand. And so the way I approach community management building is every touch point is an opportunity to make somebody an advocate and an evangelist for your brand. And when you have those advocates and evangelists, it's free marketing, it's free word of mouth, and they're going to come to your defense if there's ever, heaven forbid, an issue, a PR crisis, if you will. And you treat them like humans. I, for example, had an issue with caviar delivery last week, and it was appalling the way I was treated. I was on a customer service chat in the app, and the lady answered my question somewhat and then said, "Have a good day," and ended the chat with no chance for any follow-up. I lashed out on Twitter and still have no response from Caviar or DoorDash. And that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Next time I go to order delivery in a few hours for dinner, I'm going to probably go to Uber Eats or Postmates, because that experience was awful. And that is the point of community building. When you have a horrible experience like that, you're going to think twice about supporting that brand in the future. On the flip side, I do these little mini reviews on my Instagram of beauty products or things. I call it, I was influenced. Like, are you going to be influenced? So like, I consume everything. I buy everything that influencers post because I'm curious. And so I realized I had all these things that I bought all in the pandemic, I should tell you. And I wanted to tell people what I thought. And I bought a bunch of products. I did these little mini reviews, and there was one product that I did not like. And I tagged the brand and said, like, wasn't for me. And they reached out personally. We had many conversations about it, and they tried to make it right. And it was great. I really respected it because they were able to tell me what's up. And whenever somebody reaches out to me with a bad experience or something that I represent, I still say the customer is always right, no matter how maddening it might be or how hurt you feel, because my products are my babies. I always lead with empathy and to make it right for them. And sometimes you will make it right, and sometimes it just isn't gonna happen, and you can extend a parade to them and they're not going to be happy, and that's fine, but you just try.
And that's a really great point. And also, we got a message from an attendee. John, you're absolutely right. It's definitely more common that unhappy customers are going to go online to make it known than happy ones. And so it really does matter that the whole funnel of how you treat a customer matters, because it will come back to you.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
And so like, it's just so important. And also, I wanted to comment earlier, I think every brand is starting to realize like what you've been doing for so long is important. Community management, I swear to God, I see a new job post asking for a community manager like every day now, because it is time consuming. Like
you're always on too.
It's no longer just like creating a social campaign and hoping for the best. It really is then engaging and seeking out where your audience is.
Yeah.
And so other than utilizing these social accounts for customer service, is there anything else that you would recommend to like find, your super fans or engage further?
Absolutely. So one example that is still blows my mind to this day is with Go Hydrate. So that's my family business that I co-own and co-manage. And we do a very large scale influencer program. Well, large scale for us, maybe small scale for like a Coca-Cola or something. But and we assigned our first influencers in the fall of 2019. We're an electrolyte drink, no sugar, 5 electrolytes and vitamin D. And we hired an influencer, very big influencer in Chicago, who's now a dear friend, and still actually helps manage our influencer program. And she posted, and very quickly after her posting, we discovered that we were very large in the Weight Watchers community. So we had never thought of that. We were selling as a drink for people on the go, active lifestyles because of the electrolytes, for kids with the vitamin D. We were, focused on that kind of performance-based marketing. Yeah. And we quickly uncovered, wait a minute, we're 0 smart points for Weight Watchers. And so we then took that little nugget of information from, this one post from this influencer and said, okay, we need to talk up the no sugar. So we talked up no sugar, we talked up 0 smart points. And then we built out, an influencer program with a lot of Weight Watchers influencers. So if you go on Instagram, they all put a WW in their handle, and there's thousands of them. This entire community we didn't even know about. And now they're the biggest advocates of our brand. They've been customers for 18 months now. They buy in bulk. They tell their friends. They love us, and it's because they don't have to count us as points in their health journey. So that's one way. In terms of finding these communities, it's all about listening to your consumer. Another brand that I worked on, we had in our minds a name for our consumer. I'll call her Kate. And Kate was, a mom with kids. She was busy. And we realized that, yes, we had Kates, but we also had Katies. We had, 20 somethings living at home, living in their apartments with either a significant other, or a roommate, or by themselves. And we had to then create content for Katie. So you have to listen, and sometimes it's going to be a tough pill to swallow, because you might think that it's always Kate and that's what you're doing. And the research and the sales and the engagement is going to show you potentially something different, which in our day and age now, you see results instantly with social media. There's no delay. You don't have to wait for a massive consumer study to come back. I have interviews all the time with customers like, hey, how can we make this better? What do you like? What do you dislike? For example, we had a product that didn't quite make the mark, and we enhanced it, and we're now sending it to 10 people that left bad reviews about it to tell us like, hey, give us another shot. Let us know. Is this better? Is this worse? Like, what do you think? It's those moments. We also had a new flavor for Go Hydrate coming out next year, and I seeded it to our influencers first to give us their opinion. Like, we're in these final 2, guys. What do you think? So just building those multiple touch points. And because COVID has removed the physical nature of, events and seeing consumers, it's all about just how are you going to enhance their lives in the state that they're in right now.
Wow. And those are all really great points. And I want to bring it back to the Weight Watchers situation. That is so crazy. Like, it's good wild. For you. That's awesome. And it is very interesting, because that's something that was that I feel like was in the news and was so popular like back in the day. But it is true. Like, although it's not really talked about, there is such a huge community. How did you uncover that through that one post, that, it was like a good route to take?
Yeah. So we ended up having all these people very quickly follow us with that WW in their handle. And I'm in it all day, and I'm like, what is this? And I kept looking at them, and there's this micro community of women and men. I mean, mostly women, but some men, and they share with each other. They do their weekly weigh-ins. They do, You know, they share brands that they love, that help them. They share, you know, their highs and lows in their journey, and it's so personal and delicate. And they're all just cheerleaders for each other. And, you know, it just grew. Like, I've never seen something happen like that before, where it kind of took on a life of its own, the way that it just kind of grew and everyone started trying it. And it was pretty fun and special to watch. And they're still advocates to this day. And we still work with some Weight Watchers influencers. So it's pretty awesome.
That's incredible. And how do you track, the success of working with influencers back to your brand?
Yeah, so influencers are incredible if done correctly. So for Go Hydrate, we have an affiliate marketing program where we are able to track all their direct sales. But we also have a marketing dashboard where we're able to see the lifetime value of a customer that was brought in from an influencer for their first order, and then how our orders, you know, how do they do overall over the course of 3 months, 6 months, a year. And that is our main metric. So we are a direct to consumer company. So we have the ability to track all of that and see, and we adjust in real time. Like, if an influencer isn't pulling their weight, you know, we'll reach out and say, hey, like, we may not continue next month because you've not done XYZ, or, you know, your last stories were kind of slacking. And then they ramp it up because they don't want to lose you as a partner. And then, you know, they work harder for you. So yeah, it's all about tracking the sales and tracking the lifetime value.
And is that through like a tool, or did you create that on your, oh, really?
Yeah, our site is Shopify. So we work on Shopify, and then there's so many great apps for Shopify. So it's a back-end app that's plugged into that where everybody has their own code, their own way to get paid out from the affiliate program, things like that. So
that is super easy.
Awesome.
That's incredible. Yeah. Technology these days, I swear. That's incredible. Okay, so I have one more question, or maybe two, and then we'll jump into what we have. We have a couple of questions that were sent through. So would you recommend influencer programs for B2B clients? And have you done that in the past?
I have not. I really have not touched the B2B space, to be totally transparent. My focus has always been B2C or D2C. So that is where I've been. My gut is that if done correctly, yes, it's all about finding the right people that actually believe in what you're talking about, and also kind of weeding through the BS of influencers. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of fluff around influencers of, oh, well, I have 100,000 followers, or, oh, I worked with, you know, this giant New York Times event or whatever. But when you drill down into that influencer, you'll find that, you know, their audience is not engaged. They are not authentic. Every day is another sponsored post, and it starts to become very clear that they're not as influential as they think. And I tell you, I've worked with influencers who have 100,000+ followers who converted 0 sales. And I work with people that have less than 10,000 followers and convert 25 sales. So it is a puzzle. It is, there are many layers and elements, and I could go on for days about it, but no, I don't know about B2B specifically, but I think there can be a program for any marketing problem. But
yeah. And I think you slipped in a couple of gems there. I think a sure sign with like initially understanding if an influencer can work is looking at, are they working with other sponsors, and the engagement? Like, go to their posts and see if people are commenting, and it's not just like, you know, those spammy comments that you get all the time. Because
I call them comment pods, where it's other influencers commenting on each other, and it's like, you know, Jane in Iowa isn't commenting, and you want Jane in Iowa, and you have the other influencers commenting. So yeah, that's a huge part of what I do every day is influencer management.
Yeah, brands need to understand that it can't just be the surface level. You have to do your research. You have to actually go into each profile and get a sense of who they are and what they're doing and who they're friends with. Because you have to look at the connection, the communities that they're surrounded, that they're in, and that they surround themselves with.
Absolutely.
So now, speaking from, like, you know, when you first started off to now, what are some ways that habits and consumption around social media have changed?
Oh gosh, it's been really interesting. I always say to people, as a human, I would love a social detox. As as a marketer, I can't do that. And I think that is one of the trends actually, are these social media detoxes, right?
Mhm.
It is becoming, if anyone watched what Social Dilemma this year, the movie, that Netflix documentary about,
Oh, yes.
watch it if you didn't. It changes things a little bit for you and your brain. But we are overwhelmed with information, whether it be our friends posting they're engaged or pregnant, to a brand in our feed, to world news, right? We can't deny this year with, the Black Lives Matter movement, with the pandemic, we are being hit all the time.
Mhm.
And as I said before, mental health is my top priority and always will be. And that's a lot to deal with. When we all can go back to George Floyd, and we all can remember those days on social felt heavy. We felt, and rightfully so, it was a heavy moment, right? But as a marketer, I told every single brand I work with, we're quiet. We are not posting. We are not selling anything right now. Our focus on right now is social justice and being an ally. We are not posting anything else. And I didn't have to fight for that. Thank God. Everybody was on board. But in that same vein, it's one, figuring out your mental health as a person, and also how then you're going to be valuable to the consumer when they're not detoxing. And second, it's what stance is a brand going to take with social justice issues?
Mhm.
You no longer can stay silent, because silence, speaks louder than action now. And you do have to have a stance, and you do have to show I'm hopeful, allyship on what's going on. And that to me is very new. Brands could be quiet before, and whether
Mhm.
they should have been or not is a different discussion, but they were. And this year told us that no, consumers want to work and engage with brands and buy them that know the brand is good, and that they're
Mhm.
standing for equality and justice, and that it's not just selling you something. And that is new. The layer there
Yeah.
of transparency is very new. And as a marketer, you have to be nimble as you navigate that. I think we all saw that this year with ads on TV changing, and
Mhm.
brands coming up and speaking up about things, and all the brands reevaluating their diversity practices in house. And it's where things should have been a long time ago, but I think social media has done a good job in expediting that.
Right.
People can go on and on about how bad social media is, but it does a lot of good when used correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
this new generation below us, like,
Yes,
I can't
Gen
even,
Z.
they really can call out some BS. Like,
Oh,
they
and they will
really,
right away.
yeah, they like, I mean, they were born in technology and they've always had it. And so I think they really can sense when you're authentic, like what we said earlier. And also they really are, they're not fearful of calling people
Oh,
out. Like, they will.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it definitely, people take notice when you don't associate with one side or the other,
yeah,
or like,
yeah,
if you're silent, it's very apparent. So I think that was a great point.
yep,
um and so I have a question from the audience.
yeah.
What would you say is the strongest, most cost-effective way to get passionate communities and followers, especially as it pertains to engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Dan. As I said, influencers can be the make or break point for your brand, and they can actually be very cost effective if used correctly. So, people I think associate influencers with massive budgets and, celebrities and things like that. And yes, that's all great and fun. But like I said before, I've worked with influencers with 10,000 followers. I paid them $100 and I got more sales than somebody I paid $1,000 to. So it's all about finding the right people that work for your
Hmm.
brand. And making sure that their content is authentic. I always tell, for example, for Supper Up right now, we just ran a content campaign with a service called Popular Pays, where we hired, co- uh, content creators to create content for us, because right now we can't have traditional photo shoots and events and things like that.
Right.
And I made it very clear in the brief, like, I want raw, I want real. I want you in your kitchen with your sweats on, cooking our meals. I don't want stylized, polished posts.
Yeah.
I want how this actually looks in your lives. And, you know, that is the way to get passionate communities and followers, because they're going to relate to the mom in her robe with her hair up and her towel, cooking her dinner, you know, with kids screaming in the background. They're not going to relate to somebody dressed to the nines in the kitchen. Like, that's just not reality. If it is your reality, bless your soul. I'm never that put together. So I think, Dan, you know, it's finding your allies and, you know, going the extra mile for them. If you have a new product release, send it to them first. And it's not always going to be a celebrity or somebody with high followers. It might just be somebody in the middle of Iowa who posts about your brand every day. You know, cater to them, make them feel like a celebrity and an influencer. So
yeah, that's a really a
yeah.
great point. And I think like a lot of people, especially now, are kind of considering that route,
Yeah.
because like one, you want to be safe, like you don't want to create content,
Yeah.
and like knowing that in the content you like, I've actually read that um people respond better when it's either in the home or if you're out and about, that you better have mask on and be safe with
Mhm.
COVID, than they would with like um, content that we would have posted prior to this,
Yeah.
like having fun with your friends, whatever, out and about. Um, we have another one actually. How long ahead are you generally plan your campaigns, and what guidelines, or what do the guidelines of those campaigns generally look like?
Yeah, great question, anonymous attendee. So it really depends. For Supper Up with our content creation, because we're using a tool, we were able to do it pretty quickly. You know, we of course made sure we had brand guidelines ahead of time, talking points, must-haves for the brand, for the content creator to use about the brand. And that one was about a 3-week vetting period of candidates to create content. And then they had about 2 weeks to make the content. So 5 weeks from start to finish, we had the final pieces of content. That's a longer scenario. With Go Hydrate, our influencer campaigns, we plan a month out and we base what we spend on the previous month's sales so that it's always hopefully getting a larger budget. And we're able to quickly identify who we want to work with. And we, you know, we'll continue with people that did great, and we'll bring on new people as well each month. And the guidelines vary per brand. For Go Hydrate, it's, you know, authentic and real. We actually don't approve their content, so we let them post freely. We trust them explicitly. I've never in my 18 months of doing this with them ever had to take down a piece of content. They, you know, they understand us. We brief them before on the brand. We let them try it first before they sign on, and let them kind of run with it. It's consumers see now when things are completely prescriptive. You've all seen it on your Instagram where the captions are completely written by a PR person,
Right.
and there is zero authenticity to the influencer, and we don't work with those people. We you know, I trust them to do their job. And that's because I am a small business owner and I don't have any red tape. If there is red tape, it can be more complicated, but I think that things are shifting to be more positive on kind of the guidelines people have to follow. Of course, they say sponsored or ad or things like that, but yeah, I hope that answers a little bit.
It definitely does. And
Yeah.
speaking of you being like this, the owner and also the marketing
Yeah.
lead, how do you separate yourself from what like you initially thought that this product was for versus like as you're rolling it out and seeing how the sales go?
I love it. I am so passionate about it, and it's a good product. That I always say I could sell it to a wall if I had to. And I think that helps me. but also I listen. I think we all spend a lot of time talking, but I sit and listen a lot. And like I said, I read every single email from the customers, every single Instagram post, every single DM is me. And it's the same voice across the board. And I'm lucky that I still have that control. And I let the consumer tell us what's happening next. We had for example, we have a flavor, it's orange, and no one likes it. Very few people like our orange flavor. And so this year I said, we're not making orange anymore. It's my dad's favorite and he's the other co-owner. And so that was a hard conversation, but I said, Dad, look at the sales, look at the feedback. No one likes it. So we're nixing it. So that's where the new flavor is coming in next year to replace orange. But you just have to listen. You just have to listen. And you also have to get outside of yourself sometimes. If you're passionate like I am, and not take it personally, because it can wear you down. You can have people coming at you from all angles about XYZ reasons they hate you or whatever it is. I get emails all the time where I'm just like, how did someone write that? Do you have a soul? But I listen and I kill them with kindness, and that's just how you do it. So
yeah. And that is another great point. Like I can't imagine like keeping those blinders on to keep growing and not let people and comments bring you down. Someone has an interesting question. I love that you brought that up. So what's your opinion on the TikTok community? Do you think that your brand would ever get involved, especially knowing that a brand like Ocean Spray went viral?
Oh my gosh. Well, Miguel, good question. That to me was the perfect storm of everyone needing a breath of fresh air this year. There was something about it that was so peaceful and calm and lighthearted, and just kind of gave us like, this guy is just so happy on his skateboard, and like, that's what life's about. Like, I think we all know we can get bogged down with things every day. And like I said, the news, the election, the media, like we're all just, it's heavy. And he was so light. And I think it was the perfect timing for everyone to just say like, that's the vibe I want, like it was so aspirational, and it was so like, it was so breezy and effortless. And as a marketer, that's a dream moment. And I love how Ocean Spray got involved and gave him a car and gave him all this stuff. And, it was so perfect. You couldn't script that stuff. And to give Ocean Spray kudos, they were listening and they took that opportunity to do something. They didn't just say, it's like, they didn't just sit back and be quiet. They were like, we're going to do, this is big. And I guarantee you now, when we're in the grocery store thinking about cranberry juice or whatever it is, we're buying Ocean Spray. And it was just so beautiful to watch, Miguel. And to answer your question, Cindy, on TikTok, admittedly, I have not worked in TikTok yet. I'm still a consumer and purveying it. I was kind of waiting to see how the lawsuit panned out and all the security stuff, to be honest. I will never recommend a platform to a brand that I don't fully understand or fully have a stamp of approval. And I still don't have that with TikTok, unfortunately. And it's also a very specific demographic. The core consumer is Gen Z, but me, a millennial, and some Gen Xers are just purveyors, and we watch it, but I don't know necessarily yet the value in advertising on it. Ask me in a year and I'm sure I'll be working on it, but for right now, I don't have enough information from a brand level to give it a stamp of approval yet. But I know the value in it, and I know that it can do great things if done correctly, like Ocean Spray.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, because I feel like it's a hit or miss. Like so the content is so quick and so fast, and things move so quickly on it, so that if you spend time creating content, it's either gonna like hit hard, or it's going to be sunk down, and people are never gonna see it again. So I think it has to be done right, but that right has to be like you said, unscripted. Like it has to be that like perfect moment, or else like it's not going to hit the same way.
It won't. Yep. And it's like that for any channel, you know. We've had influencers that fall flat for Go Hydrate, and we're like, okay, that community didn't like us. Like, okay, next. Like,
Yeah.
And you just have to keep trying. So I'm sure at some point we'll try to get into TikTok. But
yeah, there's definitely a way. So why not? But that's a great point to end it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sydney.
Like, it was such a pleasure to have you. And oh, also everyone, this is our final growth series of 2020. Yeah. So thanks for ending it with us, Julia. This is great. I think this is a great way to end it. Love hearing about growth and how we can move forward into the new year. We will have more in 2021. We did not release that schedule yet, but please, like, for everyone that's on it, check back in. We're going to have many more amazing growth stories. Again, I'm Sydney with VisualFizz. Thank you for joining us. And thanks again, Julia. It was great to see you.
Yes, thanks, guys. Have a good day, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.